Today I'm making another video which I had done before, but apparently it wasn't recording, with some of the things with my childhood. I did talk a little bit on another video about my family and my mom and my dad, but my mom was from Bowmansdale, Pennsylvania. She always said no places like the Cumberland Valley, and she went to Westchester University and had lots of friends there. And I remember as a child visiting some of her college friends. And my dad went to Shippensburg, which is also where I went to college, because my dad had gone there, and we spent a lot of time going and taking him as he got older. When I was there from 71 through 75, but we went to the homecomings even before I went there and even after I graduated. So my dad was born in West Fairview. He went to high school in Harrisburg, and my mom also went to high school in Harrisburg, but they didn't meet until later in life, after they both were graduated from college and had been doing some extra classes at that point in time. I remember my mom saying she went down to Duke University for some classes. I'm not sure if my dad went there or not. He was too old to be enlisted in World War II, and he was too young for World War I, so he didn't do any military service, but he did do work on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and then he also worked on the railroad at the Enola Yards, where his dad had worked, and so did Uncle Eddie, and I guess Uncle Paul worked there too, all the railroad folks. But Milton O. Kimmel, my dad's father, was killed in a railroad accident when my dad, John Kimmel, was only 14 years old. So that's kind of a little background into my parents. But I had a happy childhood. We lived at 5222 East Trindle Road in a house that my dad had built, and he had a business there, which I remember as a lumber yard. Prior to that, it was a sawmill. He had a big planer that I loved the smell of sawdust, and the property went the whole way from Trindle Road back deep lot to where the railroad tracks are. And I remember when he would get loads of lumber or deliveries for the business, they would park a train car there, and he would unload his products that he was putting into the business. So I really thought it was really cool that the train stopped at the back of our property. So the property was quite the business. It was a huge lumber shed, which we called it, with a house in front. There was an even apartment upstairs. There was also a nail shed, other outbuildings, and he even had a tank that had gasoline for the trucks. He owned a dump truck and a pickup truck and another kind of big truck for hauling lumber. So he built the house that we lived in on Trundle Road. Then in the late 50s, he started the house that was on Allendale Road, which essentially was 799 East Coover Street in Mechanicsburg. And across the street was the house that Mr. and Mrs. Ort moved into, and that was Rhonda's family, and she was the oldest of her two brothers. So growing up was good. I had a good childhood because I got to know lots and lots of people from Mechanicsburg High School when I turned and went to junior high and high school, because I ended up going to, oh goodness, is it 4 or 5 different elementary schools. My elementary school at first was at Shepherdstown, which is where my parents got married, in the town near Bowmansdale. That was still Mechanicsburg. And then I went to second grade at Broad Street in Mechanicsburg. Third grade, I went to the junior high, which we had a classroom in the junior high building because there's well enough places to put the elementary kids that were off of Allendale Road and Orchard Crest development, because people were moving into that new area that was being developed with housing. And then finally, in fourth grade, we went to Filbert Street because that elementary school was finally built. At Filbert Street, I was also a safety patrol, which I was the first female safety officer when I was lieutenant in sixth grade. And when I was in sixth grade, my teacher was Mr. Deckman, and that's the year my mom substituted for Mrs. Sipe, who was my fifth grade teacher, who had passed away, and my mom took over that class, which was the class that Deb Parlett and Rhonda were in, whereas Sharon Parlett and I and others were in the sixth grade that year. Then we went to the junior high. Then we went to the senior high, but then we moved to the new senior high, and the one on Elm Street was the junior high then. So the schools changed a whole lot during that decade of when we were in grade school and high school. So I was in Rainbow Girls and was in drill team. I started playing the clarinet in 5th or 6th grade, and then joined the junior high band, which the junior high band, marching band, and concert band, and then stayed playing the clarinet all through junior high and high school, but also when I went to college at Shippensburg. My first job was working with my sister and Kathy Veronicas, where the Veronicas brothers owned the Chalet restaurant in Dillsburg, and I worked a lot of night shifts there, even though it was past the work permit hours, because they had lots and lots of chairs and big rooms where they had lots and lots of huge banquets with as many as 500 people. So sometimes setting up for that, serving that, and cleaning that up made a long evening. I remember the latest time I ever got home from work was like maybe 2 a.m. after a banquet, and I remember sleeping the next day when I didn't feel good, and that was probably when I was in 10th grade, I think. So that was pretty young to be out that late working. But I loved my first job working the banquets, and then eventually a regular restaurant working there. Rhonda also ended up working there, but I guess we both quit. I quit when we graduated high school, and then we got other jobs during college where Rhonda and I both were in working for the Navy Depot in Mechanicsburg on the summer interns for college students. So that was good. If I would have stuck with the government, I probably would have had a government career, but the senior year, I did not apply again to work for the Navy, and that was the year that I was planning to get married after graduating from college. But I did still work not just for the Navy, but I also worked for the New Cumberland Army Depot, and after working there for a while, I moved to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and worked in the comptroller's office, which is the probably one and only degree or job where I used my accounting degree. I did enjoy working there for a while, but then that got to be too crazy, and I started doing Herbalife and started on a different career path for myself. So the first job was a waitress, and played in the band and went to college. So I have a little book, black book I made of my childhood, of the pictures my mom saved of me. Plus we have I guess it's a VHS tape. I don't think I put it in DVD, of my 8mm movies from when I was really small. One of the first things on the movies is my mom getting in the car, bringing me home from Seidel Memorial Hospital, where I was born. And the other thing on those movies was playing at the farm in Bowmansdale, where my mother grew up. And also there's a picture of me standing on the table with the pedestal cake, trying to blow out my one single candle when I was a year old, but I didn't really know how to blow. It was just, but it didn't work to blow out the candle, so I did have some help with that. So those are the early years up through college. College was our fun times. I was in Naugel Hall my first year. I met Kathy Cutchall and Joanne Kittner. Kathy Connors was also on the same floor, and we graduated together at Mechanicsburg, but she didn't know a whole lot of the high school graduates of our 1971 class because she had just moved to Mechanicsburg at that point in time in one of those newer houses that was built off of Allendale Road. So the Cutchall and Connors, Kimmel and Kittner and Ort. That's how Rhonda had a dream about our names. Cutchall, Connors, Kimmel, Kittner, Ort. So that was the gang from college, and then it included Carrie and Lynn, and Lynn's roommate was Robert, who ended up becoming my husband, who is now, I've known him 50 years since when we met at Shippensburg. People ask us often how we met, but it was only because I was dating his roommate. And when Lynn would talk about him, he never even named him, which he went by Bob at that time. They just said, when Lynn would talk about him, my roommate and I did this, my roommate and I did that, sort of thing. So college years were pretty fun. The most exciting, unusual thing is the train would slow down because it went through campus, along campus, and then it went right through downtown. So since it was going downtown and through some curves, it had to go really, really slow, which was slow enough that you could run and jump on it while it was moving. That was probably the most crazy, dangerous thing I did as a college student. Well, maybe a few other dangerous things. Going to the haunted house and having our own party in some deserted place. Maybe some other college adventures, but right now I can't think of them all. There probably were too many. We got married in 1975 after I graduated in May of 75, so we got married in August of 75. And before we even got married, we bought our first house. Our first house was 825 Roosevelt Avenue, York, Pennsylvania. I guess we'll stop there for this video. We'll have to start with 1975 when we got married and talk about Robert's family.